Yeah. Well, it looks like we're live right now. So, everybody listening in the future, welcome to Brain Milk. I've got Ericka Kopp here. You are running for Congress, which is pretty exciting, in Virginia's first district.
Yes,
Do you want to maybe introduce yourself real quick? Just give yourself, or give the kind of elevator pitch of who you are?
absolutely. I'm happy to. My name is Ericka Kopp. Again, I am a healthcare attorney, so I defend healthcare on a daily basis at work. I am also a caregiver to a disabled combat veteran. So that advocacy piece of my job plus my home life is the through life for my entire life. I grew up in the district that I'm running to represent. Henrico County has been home to me since I was 3 years old. And it's my village, it's my community, and our current representative is not listening to the folks in my community. So naturally, that makes me a little pissed off. And the only thing that I could think to do with all of my skill set, with all of my knowledge, is to say, okay, that's it. I'm going to run against him. And so here we are.
Yeah, hell yeah. um, what kind of made you decide to like get in specifically? Like, obviously, it's such a giant decision to start a campaign and spend so much of your time, and obviously, like the media attention and talking to a million people. What was kind of like the nexus? Like, were you always politically motivated growing up, or is this a more recent phenomenon, kind of just getting pissed off and deciding I can do something about it?
Yeah, this is really me standing up to meet the moment that we have found ourselves in over the last year and a half. And so early last year, immediately following Trump's inauguration, I was seeing all of the things that he was doing against our agencies to destroy the democratic institutions that we have had for so many years. And my representative, who, by the way, y'all, he's the one who took the fake phone call to avoid answering questions.
Oh,
Uh,
really? Okay,
yeah,
I
that's
saw that
him.
video.
That's
That's
him.
nice.
So he wasn't doing anything about it. He was just really being a rubber stamp for whatever it was that the president wanted, and really also for the billionaire class, the Epstein class. He's a doormat for them.
Yeah.
And so I would write to him. He wouldn't respond substantively to what I was saying. And I would call his office and call and call and call. I would never get a call back. I might get like a form letter response back to something that I was concerned about, and rightfully so. Um, but his responses left a lot to be desired. They used a whole lot of words to say absolutely nothing. And I learned that I was not alone in what he was doing. He was doing this to everyone that was writing to him that I spoke with. I mean, there were so many people that had the same exact story that I had. And so it got to April of last year. I was at a protest and I thought for the first time, man, anyone could do a better job than Rob. Anyone at
Yeah,
all,
right.
even me. And then that turned into, well, wait, why not me? And so it was something that I sat with for a really long time. Running for office was never a part of my plan. It was never in the cards for me. I thought I never even really was comfortable with public speaking. And so it was just never something that I thought of until everything started happening, everything everywhere all at once.
Yeah.
And so I thought about it for several months. And by the time July of last year came around and the big bullshit bill was signed into law, I said, that's it. And I filed my paperwork to run 3 weeks later.
Yeah. I guess real quick, you are running in District 1, which is kind of like outside Richmond, and it looks pretty
Yes.
gerrymandered to
Hmm.
my non-Virginia trained eye, but it goes around kind of the outer suburbs, it looks like, of Richmond, and then takes like the northeastern over by the bay. It looks like a lot of rural land that they cram into the district.
Yep.
The guy's name is Robert Whitman, the incumbent. He's held the seat since 2007. Ironically named Whitman because, as you pointed out with that video of him pretending to take a phone call, not the maybe wittiest Whitman out there.
Yeah, we call him Witless.
Witless, yeah, right. Yeah, that's kind of funny. My satire site is the halfway post, and then like all the detractors or critics will be like, "Oh, more like half wit post," and it's like, "Yeah, that's a pretty good joke." um, but let's see. Let's like and this is something that's kind of funny because, like, what's the status of the gerrymandering that Democrats are trying to do? That got kicked out of court, right? I think the Supreme Court decided to reject, like, the case. The state Supreme Court denied it. Of course, Republicans are okay with the gerrymandering in other states. So, but when Democrats do it, they find some procedural grounds to overturn. The Virginia voters actually voted for it, right? It literally won a referendum or something. Like
Yes.
the citizens actually voted for it and approved it. So
Yeah.
any thoughts on what's going on there? Just shenanigans.
It's a shit show. I mean,
Yeah.
really, truly, this was something that had been done um, right after the new governor, Abigail Spanberger, came into office. The General Assembly came in.
Hmm.
They passed the bill before the November election. And then they passed it again after the November election. And the issue was with the prior to the November 2025 election. And so there was a procedural issue with that. That was what was ruled unconstitutional in the court, which they did not go to a court other than one that they thought would be friendly to them. So let's just put that out there too. They forum
Yeah.
shot the hell out of that
Yeah.
case. They
Right.
went to the middle of nowhere, Virginia, down very far southwest Virginia, and got a favorable judge to rule that it was done unconstitutionally. So
Right.
that was what was then appealed. The Court of Appeals passed it up to the Supreme Court to get a quicker decision, and the Supreme Court of Virginia said, go ahead and have the election. So we did, and the people voted to redistrict. And then it was still pending on the issue of constitutionality before the Supreme Court of Virginia. And ultimately, the court agreed with the trial court saying that it was unconstitutional by a 5-4 decision. And so the whole premise of the Republicans' argument was that with the vote before the November general election, it would have disenfranchised about 1 million people who voted early. Well, with the decision by the Supreme Court of Virginia, it disenfranchised about 1.7 million people who voted yes. So either
Right.
way, there was going to be voter disenfranchisement, and the Supreme Court, ugh, they made this ruling. They
Yeah.
made this decision that was so just.
Right. Are you accusing Republicans of bad faith politics?
I didn't say that.
Yeah. Well, it's funny too, because like when they first started talking about doing that, and all the Republicans got all of their, underwear twisted about, oh, this is so unfair. But like you look at the 2010 redistricting that they did with the Tea Party wave, they were no stranger to gerrymandering there. And again, it's always the thing. Democrats are constantly trying to stop gerrymandering nationwide, and Republicans kill it. So then, it makes no sense for Democrats to be the sole party choosing not to gerrymander and just giving up the political power that Republicans are just constantly stealing. So,
Right.
I'm,
So much
I'm
so.
a right. Let's see. On Ballotpedia, your top three issues are healthcare, veterans issues, and codifying civil rights. Obviously, the healthcare sounds like a really big one with you. And I think you used to work with healthcare related legal things, right? Wasn't that part of your purview
Yeah,
in your
that's
legal
what I do.
career?
Yeah, that's what I do in my job presently.
Right.
So I'm a healthcare attorney presently. I'm taking some time off of work right now, but that is what I do in my day to day.
Nice. Yeah. So are you looking forward to Donald Trump's Obamacare replacement plan that'll cover more people, be cheaper, and make us all be tired of how great our healthcare coverage is? Are you still holding on to the edge of your seat that that's coming any day now?
Oh, he said 2 weeks ago, like 5 years ago, or
Yeah.
2 weeks from now, like 5 years
Right.
ago. I mean, it's just. I don't think there is a plan. If there is, it's concepts of a plan.
Yeah.
And
Wait, are you accusing Donald Trump of selling a plan that doesn't exist?
that one I will agree to.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Somebody
Right.
who's convicted 34 times of fraud. Yeah, we'll say that.
Yeah. What do you make of that? Like, it's insane to me that Republicans have been campaigning against healthcare since literally 2008, because that was Obama's like top issue. They wanted to do it. So that makes it like 18 years or something to prepare, if my math is right. But they don't have any plans. So like what kind of political malpractice is that all they do is say no. They have no plans. They don't, Republicans themselves, they keep trying to kick the can down the road and just repeal Obamacare because they don't have a replacement plan. And I think in Trump's first term, his whole thing was, we'll repeal it now and then we'll have a great plan coming later. Trust me. And then thankfully, John McCain, had a little bit of political courage by killing the plan to just defund it without any replacement. But what is it about Republicans that is it just they're so bad at governing and they don't have a plan and they don't even care about the government to begin with, that they don't even literally 18 years, they don't even pretend to have some kind of replacement or competing theory of the case of what we should do about healthcare in America?
Yeah, I think it's a couple of different things. I think number one, a lot of the Republicans, at least now in office, like the Mike Johnsons that we see, and people that are on that far right part of the political spectrum, a little bit of it, they just don't care about
Hmm.
people. Like, they don't care about the needs of people. It's not going to affect
Right.
them if there's no plan in place for healthcare for
Right. But
millions of
ironically, it does
Americans.
disproportionately affect their own voters because it's
Exactly.
the rural hospitals that all lose all their money if they don't get that federal funding. And then all of a sudden, like all of their voters will have to drive 150 plus miles to have any kind of health care. And, they won't be able to afford it either because the states aren't stepping in to fill any gaps like obviously the blue states do.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's that, and it's also, I think, ties into a lot of who their donors are, and
Hmm.
that they're trying to appease these corporate interests more so than to actually govern and make something that is accessible for the people.
Right. You brought up Mike Johnson. I was musing the other day about like, is he the worst Speaker of the House ever? Because it seems to me that he has like literally no agenda. He exerts no influence on the national debate, despite being plucked from obscurity to the third most powerful position in the most important government, like powerful government in the world. But he is such like an empty bag that has no real opinions or exertions on anything in DC. And
Mhm.
like obviously he's beholden to Trump and he can't say anything because Trump flips on a dime. So like anything he says tomorrow will be completely undone by Trump the next day. And the majority that he has is so slim. He doesn't really have that much functional power because it's almost impossible to pass anything anyway. But with like his like four or five, whatever it is now, like a very slim majority. But if you win, how how do you think you would interact with Mike Johnson? I imagine you wouldn't vote him for speaker. You wouldn't vote with the Republicans for him, right?
No, no, I'm running as a Democrat, and I
Yeah.
am completely convinced that we will have a Democratic majority in the House come midterms.
Hmm.
And I mean, if he's still there is one thing, because there is a gentleman who is running to unseat him in Louisiana, and I'm really excited for his campaign. So I hope that he does it so that I don't have to interact with Mike
A
Johnson.
Democratic candidate that would
Yes,
unseat him, or like a Republican
a Democratic
challenger? Okay,
candidate.
Democrat. Okay, cool.
Yeah, so I'm really excited about that race. That'll be one that I'll be watching. But I mean, would I vote with him? Absolutely not.
Right.
Would I would I, smile at him in the halls of Congress? Maybe. Would I say nice things to him or about him? Probably not. I have no respect for anyone who has been so instrumental in the destruction of our democratic systems over
Yeah.
the course of the last year and a half. I mean, sitting representative or not, I don't believe that earns respect. And so, no,
Right.
I wouldn't be too nice to
Yeah.
him. That's for
If you
sure.
if you win, could I suggest you just bring him a copy of every day's newspaper in the morning so that when he says he hasn't heard of the news, you can say, "Ah, I gave you that newspaper today. It was
That
page
and a
one."
copy of the Constitution, I tell you what.
Yeah. What do you think about Hakeem Jeffries? Do you think Hakeem Jeffries should be Speaker of the House if Democrats take over? Do you think he's meeting the moment at all? Should Democrats pick more of a fighter with a little more viral capacity for getting people's attention?
The viral capacity piece of it doesn't much matter to me, but the fact that Hakeem Jeffries has been really a strongly worded letter across
Yeah.
this last Congress. I mean, he has done nothing
Right.
for the people. He has no fight in him. And so many people say all the time, well, Democrats aren't in power. There are limits to what they can do and they're not in power. Yes, that is true. However, there are also things that can be done. We've been seeing that even though Democrats aren't in power, people like Rashida Tlaib, people like Ayanna Pressley, they are hammering officials in hearings. We're not seeing that from Hakeem Jeffries. And
Right.
also, I think it's important to note too that I just saw a thread that he posted before we got on this call, that it said something to the effect of, "Why is Pete Hegseth still around?" And I'm like, "Dude, are you serious? He's still around
Yeah.
because Congress
Right.
has no backbone to impeach and remove him. File articles, bring them to the floor under Rule 9 and force people to go on the record to say whether or not they want somebody who has committed mass murder in international waters to stay in power.
Right. Uh, do you have any favorites that you would like to run for speaker? Because, personally, I'm like torn between like right now. It seems like everything in politics just comes down to like who gets viral action, and like we are so ADHD as a country and in a media ecosystem and with social media that like Trump kind of proves like a lot of our electoral system just depends on who can get the most like media attention. However, like with a Speaker of the House kind of situation, you maybe don't want a firebomb thrower just all day. You want somebody behind the scenes actually getting like all the votes whipped into place and actually being successful kind of behind the scenes, even if they're like Nancy Pelosi, love her, hate her, she would say like, you can attack me, you can do whatever, but like, she would never bring anything unless she knew behind the scenes that she had the votes. So like effective, even though maybe she wasn't the biggest, most kind of like viral, splashy person that got the most love and attention in the media. But what are your thoughts on that between kind of like firebomb throwers and then the people that just put their heads down and you maybe never hear of them, but they actually get things done and get consensus across?
It's gonna be somebody that checks a few boxes for me. We need somebody who, A, is doing the work behind the scenes. We need to make sure that they have a really good knowledge of not just House procedures, which anybody who's a senior member of the House would in theory, but also somebody who has a knowledge of the ins and outs of the Constitution and cases interpreting the Constitution. So there's those two things. We also need somebody who, yes, can whip votes, somebody who can really bring the party together, both its more establishment members and its more progressive members. So I have a few names that I'm tossing around in my head. Ro Khanna is a name that I have been thinking about. Um, Jamie Raskin is a name that I've been thinking about. I love AOC, and I would love to see her in that role. I'm not sure if now is the right time, but as far as somebody who doesn't take APAC money and doesn't take money from these really horrible interests that are just so devastating to America, I really like her for that reason. I also like Melanie Stansbury.
Okay. I don't know if I'm familiar with her. Maybe I'll have to look into her. What do you like about her?
Yeah, she is fiery, but also she comes with receipts, and she doesn't let people, like, try to tell her, what's up when she knows that, like, "No, this is not the way that it is, and here's how it is, and Imma set the record straight." And I love that. It's very definitive, like, "These are the facts, this is what was done, this is what you're not doing, and, oh, by the way, here's all the evidence to prove it."
Mhm. Yeah. What do you make of like the kind of divide? Like you mentioned, like AOC, like, she's a very interesting test case of like, obviously she got elected in the Bronx, like very, like kind of stereotyped as a very far left socialist kind of person. That's not really fair. But then she gets into office and is actually like really strategic in everything she does. Like she's very, very smart and is not just picking kind of like dumb battles that just like get a lot of attention, but are kind of self defeating for either policy or actual legislation or things like that. But what do you think of the divide between like the Democratic establishment and then the far left party? Like obviously right now, APAC, like you mentioned, is a big kind of divisive thing. And I think probably in 2028, it's going to be real kind of self-destructive for Democratic solidarity as we try to pick a presidential candidate. But like, what is the kind of balance between kind of sticking up for those more like left of center values that are maybe more left than like, the, I guess, median American voter versus obviously when you get elected and you have to work with Paul Gosar and Lauren Boebert, it's like like campaigning and then actually doing the governance of the House's business are like completely separate skills, things, all of that.
Yeah, so this Democratic Party in Congress right now, they seem to have more fight against progressives than they do against Donald Trump. And
Right. Yeah.
that to me is the worst part about it. Like, okay, if it's the case that the same people are paying both sides, it makes sense to me as to why the establishment would want to stay in power and therefore would fight the more progressives away from checking their power. But
Hmm.
at the same time, the establishment portion of the Democratic Party is not doing anything but, standing minutely in the
Yeah.
way
And
of.
writing strongly worded letters.
Yeah, it's just like, what are you doing? If you're not willing to fight against rising authoritarianism, you are not willing to fight for the people. And so I shake my head at some of these members of the establishment because they really show that they don't have it in them to fight for everyday Americans.
Right. Well, and it's a little bit of a gerontocracy thing too, because
Mhm.
Democrats are really, really old, and like
Yeah.
like in any government, the actual politicians have like a very elderly age skew. But Democrats right now are like really, really bad. Um, so that's obviously a problem. But it's like a weird generation change thing too, where like a lot of the Democrats that have been in power since like the 80s or 90s, it's like such a completely different ecosystem, and like that's like two generations ago now. So like if you've been in power since the 80s and you're dealing with like Reagan era Republicans and you're acting like today's like MAGA Republicans have any bearing to that Republican Party, you're just
Yeah.
kind of doing everybody a disservice, and you're just like obviously out of touch. And maybe you should step down and let younger people that are fighting today's battles and know about today's issues like take over and lead for you.
Absolutely, I completely agree. It's it baffles me all the time
Yeah.
when I see, we've got a couple here in Virginia, and I won't name names, but they are older. And I
Hmm.
look at them and I think, how are you going to stand up for and resonate with people who are voting in their first elections? Like somebody who's
Right.
18 has nothing in common with somebody who's in their 80s. They just
Yeah.
really don't.
Yeah.
Even if they may vote for the same party, like the interests that are aligned on either side are not the same. And
Right.
so it's going to take more people like me who are of a younger generation to really get younger folks interested in politics, because somebody who's pushing or over 80, like, they're not going to do it for them.
Yeah.
And I'm
Yeah.
I'm
Chuck
34.
Grassley's
I'm a hell of a lot
92 or
closer in
something.
age.
Right. I was thinking about that. Like, what is a day in the life of Chuck Grassley's staffer that is trying to tell him what, like, you know, what AI is, what, like how computers work? Like,
Oh my
it's like
god.
Donald Trump, like, literally has never sent an email. Apparently, like, there's people in Congress that don't even use like a technology that's been around for 20 or 30 years. It's like, oh, these kids with their emails. Yeah, it's
Oh
just
my
insane.
gosh. Hi,
Um,
Evie. So great to see you, my friend.
Oh, nice. Got some shout outs. Let's talk about campaigning for a minute. Like when you decide to start campaigning, what is step one? How do you like? To me, with my ADHD brain, it's like there's so many things going on. Where did you start day one?
Yeah, we started with the FEC. So there are a couple of different FEC forms that are required to be filled out before you can get your bank account, before you can get your Act Blue or whatever fundraising server that you plan to use. So it's FEC Form 2 and then FEC Form 1. And that those two are both to set up your political campaign committee. So like at the bottom of every yard sign where it says paid for and authorized by.
Right.
So that's the committee that gets set up with one of those forms, and then you also register, like, yourself as the candidate. So that happens first with the federal government. You get your campaign committee number, and then you can go and get your bank account and start doing all of the things to raise money. So it is a bit of a process, but back in 2021, the FEC put out this, like, kind of helpful, kind of not helpful, they tried. They put out this guide for, like, where to start, and so that was a really good starting point for us, and fortunately, I mean, everything's on YouTube, so
Hmm.
there are also some YouTube videos that go through, like, how to do the things, that are required by the federal government in order to be a federal candidate. So that was helpful as well. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, both my campaign manager and I, which my campaign manager is my older sister that I've voluntold to do this job because she is the most detail-oriented
Yeah.
person I've ever met in my entire life, and also the person that I trust completely with my entire
Right.
life. So she and I were learning to fly the plane as we build it. And
Yeah.
that's really been the case from jump. And we've been learning everything as we go. And it's been difficult, but I mean, at least, we have each other and we have the resources that we've been able to find.
Right.
And that's been really helpful.
Is there anything that like the Democratic Party does or anything? Do they have like a intro guidebook or like different
No,
assistance resources? Not really.
not the party, but there are some offshoots, some like independent organizations, whether they be for Democrats or whether they be for third party candidates. So there is the NDTC, National Democratic Training Committee, and I think that is independent of the party. And they have a bunch of different training seminars. They do like different online meetings, Zoom meetings about certain things with runnings. They had one that I did last July. It's called So You Think You Want to Run for Office. And so that was pretty cool to like get the information from somebody who had been through it. And I think that person had run for a state level position, but they have them for other positions as well. There's also Good Party, I think is what it's called, but I believe they're independent only, and then Run for Something is another one. So there
Yeah.
are a bunch of different organizations that are trying to help people to get involved because you're right, we need more younger people to run for office.
Yeah. I think Run for Something, is it Amanda Littman that runs that, right?
That sounds right, yeah.
Yeah, I think she was mentioning that, like, obviously Trump is a giant inspiration for a lot of people, but I think she said something like in the last year, like more people have used their resources and started running for things than like the entire first Trump term combined. So that's
I
pretty
believe it.
cool. Obviously, with Trump, like with all the Doge cuts and just shredding the government, it's like a nice inspiration for a lot of experienced government people to get in. And
Definitely.
obviously, just the more people running, it's good for democracy. There's more ideas, there's more money, and just knowledge of their friends and all of their acquaintances and like social media fans and like everything. And it's like a giant web that just gets bigger and better. So, well,
Absolutely.
yeah, and thank you, obviously, for jumping in and taking part of the democracy. It's always it's like that's the thing. It's like when people get so apathetic and don't care, you just get all these nepo babies that run, and it's
Mhm.
just the people that don't have jobs and don't need jobs that can take all the time off, and then you get like the billionaires that'll waste like $250 million to get fourth place in a primary somewhere, or worse, or win, and then or like in the case of the newest senator to Congress right now, you just have to be the sibling of a former senator, and then
Yeah.
you get appointed in their place.
Yeah.
I'm like curious about that because like Lindsey Graham died, and then Trump just comes out saying the sister should be like. Does she have any experience? Like I was holding out hope. Maybe she's like a secret Democrat. It's like, did anybody vet her? Like I don't know. Maybe she doesn't have like every Republican view. But I don't know. We'll find out, I
No,
guess.
I don't know about that. No, I read something about her background, about her bio, and she's never run for anything previously. And
So
she
straight to the
worked
U.S.
right, right. I mean, to be fair though, I have never run for anything, and I'm running for U.S. House. But I do think that's a little bit different. I have a lot of experience as it relates to
Yeah.
these
Well, and you're
nationwide
actually going to
issues.
win it on your own and not just get handed it.
Right, right. My last name isn't really doing anything for me.
Right.
Meanwhile, in South Carolina, when you have the last name Graham. But yeah, I also saw that she worked for like the state department for the blind. And
Mm,
so she did that for a few years, but I don't know what kind of experience she would have for everyone in the state um that would be necessary for
right.
running in the Senate or being there.
Yeah. My kind of satirical suspicion is just that because she would want to protect her brother's legacy, Donald Trump wants to appoint her so that he can get a little more out of his blackmail folder on Lindsey Graham. But who
Mhm.
knows? Let's see. I saw in an interview you mentioned kind of like balancing between accountability and affordability when you're campaigning. What do you think like works better? Like obviously right now Trump is just such like executive, like an out of control executive that is, arguably trying to commit fascism, make himself a dictator, grift everybody, steal as much money as he can from the government. So
Mhm.
like it is such like a category 5 hurricane of just terrible governance. However, you also like you want to get gas prices down, cost of living down. There's a lot of problems that still affect people's lives. So how do you like personally balance when you're talking to people or campaigning between like the proverbial kitchen table issues and just like Donald Trump is a psycho lunatic and needs to get out of office as soon as possible, be impeached, whatever, you know?
Yeah, I think a few things can be true at the same time. Number one, we need accountability because we're never going to get it from Trump unless we demand it ourselves. So
Right.
Congress has got to step up and impeach him. I support filing or co signing articles of impeachment on day one in office. And while it will start with Trump, it'll also include his cabinet officials that have violated their oath to the Constitution or federal law generally. So that's one piece of it. Without you mentioned rising fascism and also the kingmaker of all of these different things that are contributing to this affordability crisis. Without him in office, then we're going to start to see some changes to the kitchen table issues that we're all experiencing every day. So that's one piece of it. It's also about ending the war in Iran, the war that never should have been started in the first place, reopening the strait with diplomatic relations with Iran so that
Hmm.
we can get gas prices down, so that farmers can get access to fertilizer again, so that food costs can go down. It's also Congress reasserting its exclusive power under the Constitution of taxation by repealing the tariffs that this president
Right.
imposed. And so that is going to have an effect also on the cost that we're paying every day, again, affecting the affordability of goods and the money that's coming out of our pockets.
Yeah, that's also the wildest thing to me is like you get all these Republicans that like have literally never shut up for years about the Constitution and all the rules and rights, and like how many Republicans have had little pocket constitutions in their little shirt pocket for as long as I can
But
remember. Yeah, right, right. But like Republicans right now, they don't care that Trump is starting a war without congressional authorization. Trump's not even going through the motions of coming up with lies about it. He's just straight up doing it. And then Mike Johnson's kicking the can down the road over and over. And then like even Rand Paul, like arch libertarian, says, "Well, Trump's negotiating peace right now, so let's not vote and hamstring him." And it's like we're on I think truce number like 5,000 of the Iran war so far.
Yep.
And then on top of that, like the tariffs, where like all money and power of the purse is in Congress. So Trump really has literally no power or responsibility whatsoever to just start doing taxes on, again, the American people because we pay it. It's not
Mhm.
China. There are all these other countries paying it. So, like, how do you think you'll interact with Republicans that are just like such bad faith, like negotiators, debaters, legislators? Like, is there any kind of like gleam that like like there'll be any success kind of bringing in the excess of the executive branch when Republicans have no interest?
I think this is going to take a couple of things to do. I think number one, we have to call out the bad faith. We can't be a party that is for the people while we're, having fireside chats with parties who are not acting in good faith. And
Hmm.
so I think we need to do that. I also think that things are going to change slightly when the new Congress comes in because the balance of power will shift. And I'm maybe speaking things into existence a little bit, but I certainly believe that the House is going to change hands. I believe it will be a Democratic majority in the House. And I think we are closing in very closely on a Democratic majority in the Senate, too. So even though there will have to be work with Republicans, I think that it's going to be the case that they're going to be much more willing to work with Democrats because they still have to get reelected, for one. And if they're acting with the Democrats, that might be a way for them to retain some votes at home. But also, I think it's going to be the case that there is a strong enough position to hold this administration and this president in particular accountable. And they will be a lot more in favor of getting on board, I think, when they're in the minority. Because at that point, I mean, Trump's not gonna save them. His
Yeah, he
endorsement
doesn't care at
now is
all.
yeah, his endorsement now is, like,
Right.
sometimes it's the kiss of death. Like, I just I don't know what utility Trump will have to them in the next Congress.
That's an interesting thought. Like, do you think I don't know. It's so weird because part of me thinks like Trump maybe like his health looks really, really bad. I don't think he's going to live the entire term. And
Same.
then like, but like even if he did live, like Donald Trump, like I don't think personally that he will try to run for a third term. I think that he's just trolling. I think maybe even Republicans would be like, that's a bridge too far. Because obviously Republicans, like, behind the scenes, it's pretty conventional wisdom that like they're telling everyone in the media off the record that Trump's lost it. And I think nothing would be better for Republicans than if Trump just had a heart attack and got out of the picture and stopped ruining everything. Like to me, it seems like Trump's not even trying to win these midterms at all. He's taking all his hopes that he can somehow ram through the SAVE Act. But Lisa Murkowski just, I guess, was like the last maybe squishy vote that would maybe vote for it. She said the other day she wouldn't because it would
Mhm.
screw over all the Alaskans that don't live real close to Juneau and would have to spend like $450 on a plane ticket or travel all day to go get to an office to get like the ID that's needed.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Like, what do you think post Trump? Like, how does the Republican Party even bounce back when they've just been totally enveloped in this kind of like a carnival show and basically it's like they just have this I'm blanking on the word I'm trying to come up with, but like just personality cult essentially, like what do Republicans do? How do they bounce back and pretend to be normal and rational? Do they just pretend all of this never happened and just we need to move on for the sake of the country? I'm not looking in the past, I'm looking in the future. Like, what do you think Republicans will do?
Yeah, I don't think the gaslighting is going anywhere anytime soon. I think that is going to stay in the Republican Party and to some extent the Democratic Party. So I won't make that, put that all on Republicans. But I do think that we're going to see a lot of people on the right side of the aisle who are claiming that they were always against the policies that
Right.
Trump tried to put in place. Meanwhile, it's like, hey, your voting record's public, right? Like, that we can go and look up exactly how you voted on these different things that Trump was pushing and say that you're full of it. And
Right.
we have to. We have to continue to call out all of the bullshit because unless we do, then they're going to continue to control the narrative. They already control the media to a certain degree. And beyond that, like people are not actually going and fact checking what people are saying. And so we have to have people with strong voices, people with loud voices who are going to say, "No, this is not how it was back then, and here are the receipts on it." So, beyond that, I'm not really sure what the Republican Party is going to look like. Um, I have a mind to wonder if the MAGA portion of the Republican Party might try to split off into their own party, and totally fracture the Republican Party as
Yeah.
a whole.
I wonder about that. Like, the
Yeah.
UK is having the Reform Party kind of all of a sudden eclipse the Tories. And so that's like, might get real interesting in their next election. But like MAGA, like, where does MAGA go after Trump? Who takes that mantle? Who has the person? Like, it's obviously not JD Vance,
No.
right? And then Marco Rubio is Hispanic, which kind of is like a big downer for the anti-immigrant,
Yeah. Yeah.
party in the MAGA the side of things. But
I don't know. I don't know who takes over the MAGA base. I don't know where those voters go. It would be really interesting to see. And maybe that's where leavingmaga.org becomes so ingrained in our society is so that like, hey, you were in this party and now your leader has gone, hey, look at this information here. This might help you.
mm,
I don't know. Um, I I'm interested to see what happens because I certainly agree it's not gonna be JD Vance. It's not gonna be Marco Rubio, and I really don't think it's gonna be RFK Jr.
I kind of have a fear that it'll be like Tucker Carlson. Like he'll just come out of nowhere and get really big and take over. Like maybe he'll be like the successor to. He's certainly got the isolationist and know nothing qualities of Trump's MAGA side of things. But
Yeah, I
Uh,
just wonder if he might not have already pissed off the MAGA base because he's broken with Trump on so many occasions.
Yeah, that's an interesting thought. However, I would have thought prior to Trump that Republicans would never give up free trade, like the million other things that they just completely flipped on a dime after spending 50 years never shutting up about their ideological commitment to. But
Mhm.
when you're campaigning, like, and you're talking to like MAGA people, for instance, do you have any like fun stories about that? Like, what's your angle that you go to try to convince those people? Have you even experienced many like arguments or conversations with them?
Yeah, I had a conversation with one woman who, even though she claims that she's an independent, the things that she was saying happened to
Uh-huh.
be very MAGA coded. So we had a chat. She was sitting on her porch. I'm walking past her. She's with her dog, and I'm a dog mom. So I see a dog. Like, oh my God, can I pet your dog?
Yeah.
I'm that person. So we're talking about the dog. We're talking about, other things in happening around. And then we start to talk about healthcare. And I'm like, oh, well, that's my specialty. I'm a healthcare attorney. And we start talking about it. And then I mention, and I'm also running for Congress. And she's like, oh, really? Wait. She said, where do you stand on abortion? And I'm like, oh my God. So then we get onto this topic of abortion. And she's saying, well, I don't think that the government should pay for abortions. They don't.
Yeah.
They don't.
Yeah.
And I think that the government shouldn't be the one to give services to people. I think it should be through the churches. Well, and then I start asking questions. So I try to get them talking. And I said, well, um, don't you think that the government has a greater reach than an individual church in one singular location?
Right.
And she's like, well, yeah, I guess that's true. And she says more things about the Bible, and I'm like, doesn't the Bible say to love your neighbor as yourself? Well, yeah, it does. But and then, conversation proceeds. I end up getting a real phone call, not a fake one.
Yeah.
And I had to depart. But a couple of hours later, when I left where I was going, which it was my sister's house that I was going to. This is a neighbor of hers. I left her house, go to my car, and the lady is either still or back outside. And she says, I thought about what you said. You really opened my mind.
Oh, hey.
Call the press.
Yeah.
And I think we need to have more conversations like this. Fantastic. But as a general matter, whenever we're speaking to someone, particularly if we don't know where they lie politically, whether or not they're MAGA or if we just have no idea, we'll ask them, "Hey, what issues keep you up at night?" And we'll hear from them about their issues, and then we'll start to ask more questions. So, if they say, for instance, immigration, okay, well, what about immigration keeps you up? What is there something specific about immigration that you're concerned with? And then
Hmm.
we'll just go from there.
Well, but you're really doing good work for the democracy in that regard, changing hearts and minds a little bit, one door at a
We're
time.
trying. One door
Are
at
you
a
doing
time, one person at a time.
yeah. Are you doing a lot of like door to door knocking? Are you doing like events and like meeting with different organizations? I imagine there's like a bunch of endorsements up for grabs and like the cities and counties that you might represent. What's all that like?
Yeah, so if we had more of a volunteer force, we would be doing the door-to-door canvassing, but because that's not exactly fruitful, and a lot of
Not
people
the
here
best
are
use of
concerned.
time.
Right, and a lot of people here are concerned with ICE, and, like,
Yeah.
fair concern. So we're taking the position that politics as a whole in 2026 has really changed from the way that things used to be done, and so we are going more the route of events. We're looking at what events are happening every day between now and the primary, and we're loading up our calendar to go to as many events as possible because it's been more successful for us to speak with people directly in a public setting rather than going and speaking to them at their door.
Yeah.
So we're targeting mostly events that are in our district or very close to it, and just going and speaking to people. So we'll get a handful of volunteers and we'll just kind of direct people to come to me and speak with me about what concerns them, about what issues they have, etc. And I think that is a better use of our time and energy than is the going door to door, because people really don't answer their doors. We did that during our
Yeah,
signature
right.
collection period, and we got maybe 1 in 6 houses that answered the door.
No, yeah, right. Yeah. Are you surprised by the conversations? Are people nicer than you expected? About the same? Or is like the political volatility maybe not so pronounced as we think in the media, and people are just kind of regular people living their lives, and maybe they're not that even educated necessarily on all the issues and candidates?
Yeah, I think it's a lot of people just don't know. They don't know that there's a
Yeah.
primary happening. They don't know that there are 7 candidates in this primary. And I place a little bit of the blame for that on the state party, because even though they claim to be neutral, and that's another issue in and of itself, but even though they claim to be neutral, they don't even put the word out that there is a primary happening. So it's on the candidates to go and find everyone everywhere and be like,
Hmm.
"Hey, there's a primary election happening. Also, I'm running, and here you go. Here's some information." We have heard from plenty of people that they had conversations with people directly who they go to the polls to vote. They see that there are 7 candidates on the ballot, and they turn around and leave so that they can research the candidates.
Hmm.
And it's just like there's not enough put out there about the fact that, hey, democracy is strong in the first district of Virginia. We have 7 candidates, all of whom are
Right.
vying for the Democratic nomination. And here is the research for all of the candidates. Here's their websites. Go and look them up.
Yeah. Do you have any good relationships with any of the other candidates? Have you been victim to any like crazy attack ads or anything like that? Is it civil? Is it heating up now that it's closer to the actual primary day?
It is fairly civil. I know everyone in the primary. Of course, we've been to events together, but some of them
Hmm.
I've known outside of the candidate events. Like, for example, one of the more establishment candidates who is endorsed by the DCCC, she is also an attorney. And when I was in law school, I had some interactions with her personally, well, in her professional capacity, but I interacted with her directly, I should say. And so I remember her from that. We're also both attorneys in the same area. We belong to some of the same bar associations. So we see each other at events outside of campaigning, which is, it just is. I'll leave it like
Yeah.
that. Uh, but I have no bad blood with anyone. There's been no negative attack ads with anyone. One of my opponents officially, he's one of my best friends. So we have really a good situation here in that even though there are 7 candidates running, um, we're all pretty friendly with each other. We're nice to each other. It's not like,
Yeah.
"Oh,
That's good.
man,
Yeah.
let me go put this attack ad out against so and
Right.
so."
Yeah.
Yeah, we're all cordial with each other.
That's good. There's no, I think it was Lyndon B. Johnson that once accused one of his opponents of being a pig fucker or something, just to get his opponent to deny publicly that he was a pig fucker. So none of that going on.
None of that going on.
Yeah.
I mean, there are
Or
legitimate
maybe a,
concerns, but
right.
not anything like that.
Yeah. Like if you won and you were like, like let's say you got the magical wand, like what are some of like the legislation like pieces that you might pass? Like if you were like dictator for a day, proverbially, like
Ooh.
what's closest to your heart? Do you think?
Okay, so number 1, Trump's gotta go, as does Pete Hegseth, as does RFK Jr., as
Yeah.
does JD Vance, as does Marco Rubio, like, gone. We would have a new government installed. We would have court reform at the Supreme Court. They would be held to an ethical standard enforceable by Congress so that when they do something that doesn't jive with ethics rules, they can be held
Hmm.
accountable to the people.
Like their
Um
billion adopt a billionaire program where you get yacht
Mhm,
vacations and RVs. Would you
mhm.
support like court packing to get to like the 13 what the circuit courts or whatever where you would match the number of Supreme Court justices? Do you think that would be fruitful for Democrats to try someday? What do you think about that?
Yes, and to your point about Democrats trying it someday, strategically, we will have to wait until we have a president that can actually follow the law. who is the one to appoint these justices into place.
Yeah.
But yes, I do agree that we need to align the number of appellate circuits with the number of justices that we have. And there are there are 13 circuits, as you mentioned, and each justice sits at the head of each of those circuits. So it makes sense that we have one justice for each federal appellate circuit. Chief Justice John Roberts is the circuit justice for three different circuits, mine included. And I see that and I'm just like, ugh.
Yeah. Well, he's also on the board of like whatever that arts thing is that like a lot of the Smithsonian's or whatever, or like the National Gallery. Like there was a big controversy where Trump like basically wanted to like not show the art or not give grants to, of course, like people of like artists of color that were famous. But it seems like John Roberts is doing a lot of extracurricular stuff beyond just the Supreme Court.
I mean, that's one reason in and of itself as to why we need an ethics code that's enforceable by
Yeah.
Congress. Because if we don't have it, clearly they can't and won't police themselves. And
Right.
it's what are they going to do? What are their consequences if they say they've done something wrong? They don't exist. And so that is exactly why I think we need that. And then to your prior question, also, if I were a dictator for a day, we would have universal health care and we would have voting rights and we would have the Equal
Hmm.
Rights Amendment be the 28th Amendment to the Constitution.
Nice. With the healthcare bit, what do you think would be most effective? And I would say, for the sake of the question, what do you think would be the easiest political hurdle to jump? Is it like a Medicare for all thing? Like Obamacare was kind of a half step of last resort, kind of, where it's
Mhm.
still kind of private. And then obviously you need buy-in from all these exchange, like companies joining the exchanges. So obviously not perfect, but it did give like 21 million plus people healthcare. So successful in actually doing things for the people that need it the most. But,
Mhm.
politically, it was a bit of a sausage making, like less than pretty outcome than many, Democrats and certainly liberals would have wanted, right?
Mhm. Yeah, I think with a universal healthcare system, the most widely known piece of legislation is Medicare for all. And if that's what ends up being, at the end of the day, the best bill forward for a comprehensive universal healthcare system, I will support that. And I will, tell all of my colleagues about it from my own personal and professional experience related to healthcare. And so I would hope to be a sounding board for the ideas that are in that bill as to what it is and why we need it. I think it would also be a good selling point to Republicans if they're acting, in good faith and in their constituents' best
Big
interest.
if there, right?
Yeah, yeah. If it's doing a lot of work in that sentence, I
Yeah.
know. But if that is the case, this would be something that their constituents would be in favor of too, because financially, Medicare for all would save over $450 billion a year. This was studied by Yale like 6 years ago, 5, 6 years ago.
Yeah.
And so it would be better as far as economically, it would be cheaper. Not only that, the health outcomes are better. It would save 68,000 plus lives per year.
Right.
So people wouldn't be dying of preventable causes because they couldn't afford to treat whatever illness it was at the start.
Right.
And so I think there is a lot of positives that that bill brings. There would have to be a revision to the bill so that it includes a funding structure within it, because presently it doesn't. But I think that could be an easy enough change to the bill, particularly, I don't think it's going to get past this Congress. So when it gets introduced again in next year's Congress, then
Hmm.
we could introduce it again with a funding structure so that it is um, much more possible to get it passed.
Yeah.
However, I don't think that this president is going to do anything that benefits the people. So I don't know that this ends up happening right away.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Uh,
And the other thing too is that even with Obamacare, as you mentioned, that ended up before the Supreme Court a couple of years after it was passed. So we're at the end of the day going to have to contend with the fact that this too will either live or die at the Supreme Court. And what we've seen from them over the last 2 years, we've not seen a court that is interested in acting for the benefit of the people. So I think this is where we're going to have to think about perhaps appellate jurisdiction stripping from
Hmm.
the Supreme Court of, matters related to the new healthcare system that is created, or another creative solution to work around the fact that this could be something that is taken apart by the Supreme
Yeah.
Court.
Yeah, it's going to be a lasting challenge. And obviously, Mitch McConnell, possibly rest in peace, but like stealing that Supreme Court seat, stealing a liberal majority that we would have had is just like, talk about impactful. But like, yeah, I mean, Democrats could win a massive majority. They could win all, like every seat in Congress. And you have this court that could just strip any legislation that they want. This court, like,
Mhm.
never stops showing us that they're basically that they have the outcome in mind, and then they figure out whatever rationale to get to the partisan outcome. And then even when it's like a similar lawsuit that's happening from something that they've already ruled on, they always have some rationale that this time it doesn't apply for the Democrats where it would favor
Yep.
them. So just a huge lasting frustration. Obviously, it's a little bit like the Supreme Court in America is probably the most unique Supreme Court or judicial branch in like almost any like modern industrialized country, democracy's government, because our Supreme Court justices like have lifetime terms that don't end. And then obviously the corruption thing where it's basically police yourself. Like, I guess Clarence Thomas would have to rat himself out that this year he thinks he took a little too much free vacations from Harlan Crow and the other billionaire, apparently Nazi memorabilia collectors that finance all the Supreme Court justices. But
I had
just
not
kind of
seen
wild.
that, but as soon as we get off
Oh
the
yeah,
call
yeah,
here,
Harlan
I'm
Crow.
gonna go
Yeah,
look into
yeah.
it.
I think he's got like a room or something of like it's
My
probably not just Nazi memorabilia, but I think there was
God.
it was a little controversial that I think he's just a fan of history though. No worries. He was really interested in history.
Listen, I live in the capital of what it was the Confederacy, and I've
Yeah,
heard that it's history, not hate. No, it's not. It's just hate. That history was
yeah,
4 years. Obama's presidency lasted
yeah.
double
Right,
the amount of time that the Confederacy did. It's not history. It was a bookmark in the history
right.
book. That's it.
Well, it's funny, like all of those monuments and all of those things basically started going around in like the early 1900s because basically like the daughters and granddaughters and like the kids and grandchildren of Civil War soldiers felt bad that their grandparents were racist. So they started that like it was basically like 40 years after the Civil
Yeah.
War where most of those monuments and groups started getting going. And it was basically like an intentional thing to just whitewash that history. And it's about states' rights, but like states' rights to what? Have
Yeah.
slaves? Right?
Yeah. States' rights to own people.
Yeah.
Like,
It's
you're
insane.
you're gonna glorify that? Yeah, it's atrocious, honestly,
Yeah.
and, there are still so many really big Confederate flags right off the side of the highways here. Like, you'd be
Yeah.
surprised.
Right. I've been to Richmond. I really enjoyed it. You guys have a nice art museum that I believe was free. I think I went to like two art museums there, but the architecture was really cool. I guess like all around like the kind of downtown, there's all those like beautiful streets of all those like 2 or 3 story apartment buildings with
Yeah.
a lot of columns. It seemed like a really fun place, and I was not expecting to like it so much, but it seems pretty cool.
So,
What do you make of what do you make of Virginia in general? It's become like much more blue in recent years. It used to be a pretty solid red state, but is it all kind of population growth of the big cities that have kind of impacted that? Is it something else?
I think it has a lot to do with the big city effect, particularly in Northern Virginia. There are a lot of Democrats based in Northern Virginia. There are a lot of Democrats based here in
Right,
Richmond. But also, like, we used to be a solid swing state, and we've we've seen that swing in the last, 5 and 10 years, whereas prior to 2021, we had a Democratic governor, and then 2021 until 2025, we had a Republican governor, and
right.
then that shifted back, I think in part because the Republican candidate in the most recent gubernatorial election was just nuts, but eh, and the Democratic candidate was more sane. She had a lot of support, and she had more experience. She had been in
Yeah,
Congress for several terms, but I think we've seen so much in the way of, like, people moving to Northern Virginia for work in that area and also in DC that there are a lot of people who identify with the Democratic Party. Um,
Yeah.
there are still quite a few towns here in Virginia and quite a few counties where they are redder, but even over the course of the last year and a half, from what we've seen from this administration, from what they've done to disenfranchise working class folks, farmers, and people who have traditionally voted more for Republicans than for Democrats, they are not pleased with what's happening, to say the least. And
Yeah.
they're of the mindset that, like, okay, well, maybe it's time that I vote Democrat.
Yeah. I'm hoping, like, especially with the farmers, Trump has just destroyed the farm industries, like agricultural export partners. China's gone to like Argentina. Trump literally bailed out the Argentinian government that was taking all of those contracts because he started tariffing the crap out of China. And so, I hope you're right. And like, obviously, Iowa has a very strong Senate candidate there.
Yep.
Kansas already has had like a two-term Democratic governor. Nebraska, Omaha is a very kind of a blue island there. So hopefully it would be nice if farmers realize Republicans are not doing anything for them and Trump is like actively destroying their entire industry.
Yep.
But it's those single issue voters, unfortunately, that it's like that abortion,
Mhm.
like single issue voter you just mentioned earlier.
Yep.
Like it's something like Democrats can never convince them. Do you have any
Yeah.
advice for the Democratic Party in general on how to, like the Democrats are like really unpopular as a party, which is just wild that like they're winning a lot of the kind of polling in terms of like generic ballots right now, just specifically because Trump and Republicans are so crazy. But Democrats, it's not because the party itself has a great brand that everyone's really excited to consider themselves a Democrat. But what do you
Mm.
think Democrats can do to kind of turn that around?
Oof, where do I start with this one? Certainly, there needs to be messaging packaged in a way that is simple, easy to understand, and accessible to anyone of any education level.
Hmm.
We as Democrats have always been the party that's been viewed as elitist. We have always been the party that has been viewed as, oh, they're well educated. And yes, I mean, that's true for me. I have a bachelor's degree and a law degree. So, yes, that is true, but we need to speak in plain English. Like at the start of it, that's something that we can do to be more accessible to a wider variety of people. And also, we need to have a platform as a party. We can't just be the party that says Trump is bad. We have to show why people should actually vote for us. And not only that, but there needs to be unification in the party. Like, we can't have the establishment Democrats going after progressives and have all of this infighting because the whole party looks stupid when we do that. And also, it's not conducive to bringing people into or under the big tent that we've heard all the time. So if we can start to do those things, and then the party, state and federal, when there is a contested primary, they either need to stay out of it or fund everyone equally,
Hmm.
because otherwise they're just manufacturing the appearance of choice
Right.
rather than actually empowering voters to make their own choice, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah. How much do you think the party should like even intervene at all? Should it be a thing that they should just be totally hands off? Like, the party's kind of made a mess in Maine, for instance, where they really tried to get behind the governor. I forget her name off the top of my head. And then
Janet
obviously
Mills.
Janet Mills. Graham Plattner, obviously kind of an insurgent, but like his candidacy was kind of weird too, because there were other groups that like really picked him out of nowhere and basically tried to force him on the entire state. And then, of course, not vetted. And now we found out he's got a lot of skeletons in his closet. But like, I guess like, but on the other hand, Chuck Schumer, like most of his other picks, have been really successful. Like North Carolina, kind of clearing the field for Cooper there, picking that Senate candidate, I think in Iowa. So it's like, it's like a it's a push and pull kind of where obviously the party does want to make things as easy and low stress and not have to spend a lot of money on giant primary fights, and then wants to keep the party from having a giant kind of civil war. But then obviously if the party picks wrong and like, people aren't really thrilled or amped about Chuck Schumer to begin with. So if he's kind of, trying to be kingmaker, that is, in itself is kind of a crisis. But how do you think that, like, if you were in his position, how do you think you would balance between let's try to not spend $1 billion on this primary race versus let's, actually have the field wide open, and then it's like a plinko of who knows who can win 3% to win like a massive field. Like how would you do things different, I guess?
Yeah, I think it makes sense for the party to find someone or back someone where there's only one candidate. If that's the
Hmm.
case, then sure, back the nominee, support the nominee, but don't get involved in a primary. Or if you're going to and you want to give some money to each candidate, fine. But I really we're seeing this in my race, and it's been very difficult because of the fact that not just the national party, but also the state party, in the shadows and in backroom meetings and stuff,
Hmm.
they are supporting exactly one candidate for the primary. And I'll tell you something about this particular candidate. She ran last year for attorney general and she lost the primary to a grassroots candidate because she took $800,000 from Dominion Energy.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
like it's I don't know why this person was the selection of the national party for this race, but I don't think it makes sense for a very contested primary where there are 7 different candidates for the national party to pick one, say that, "Oh, this person is who we've picked in our Red to Blue program, and we're going to support them financially, and we're going to have them, flip the seat." They have to get through a primary first,
Yeah.
and
Right.
there are 7 people in this primary. Like, any one of us could take this seat, and then y'all end up looking stupid because you backed one person that didn't win.
Right. Yeah.
So, it really makes no sense to me. Again, it's like, if there's one person who is already the nominee, yeah, okay, the party can come in and support them, but don't do it in such a contested primary.
Yeah, it's kind of a weird thing, and then obviously it's good for the party when you actually have a real contested primary, and then everyone gets so many more people involved because you have 7 candidates getting all of their acquaintances, friends, like the people that they've met on the campaign trail.
Yeah.
So it seems like it would be good for the party. However, I guess you do have to balance too, like the more acrimonious it gets. Unfortunately, like there's some races where like the progressives decide, well, I'm not voting Democrat at all, or then the like moderates will say, like, I'm not voting for the progressive candidate, and that to me, as a person that thinks that like all action is downstream of winning. If you don't win the election, you can't help anybody, right? Like Trump,
Mhm.
like Kamala Harris didn't win because like Hillary didn't win because 2% of liberal people were too pure to vote for the Democrat that would give them 80% of what they wanted instead of 100% of what they wanted. It's just, well, Trump has been in president or been in office twice, and now no trans people are being helped, no gay people are being helped, no people without health insurance are being helped, because we lost. So I don't know. I'm really worried too about like 2028, especially with like the Palestine Israel divide, APAC, all of that. I feel like it's going to be a real nasty primary. And like
Mhm.
I'm a person that's like, I will vote straight ticket Democrat, whoever it is. If somehow a dumpster fire got, elected, like I would vote for the dumpster fire. I don't know. I'm just like, I just think Republicans right now have like literally no right to govern anything. And they've shown that they cannot be trusted with any amount of constitutional responsibility whatsoever. So I don't know. But I just hope it's not too self-destructive for the Democratic primary, but we'll see.
Yeah, and I think if the national party looked at candidates who were more progressive than establishment,
Hmm.
um, they would see a shift in voter engagement and
And
participation.
turnout. Yeah,
So,
right.
yeah,
Exactly.
and ultimately in turnout, I think you're absolutely right that there are progressive candidates who they get overlooked. And then because there's nobody who is progressive who will say things like Israel is committing genocide in Palestine, they want to hear that. If your candidate can't say that, then
Yeah,
people are going
right.
to stay home. So find candidates who will appeal to the majority of people. And maybe it's just as simple as that. Maybe it's just that the party is picking the wrong people. But I mean, I think it would be a lot better for democracy, for voter engagement, if the candidate is more progressive than more moderate. I think a moderate will still vote for the
Mhm.
progressive if that is the only democratic choice, but I don't think the same is true in reverse.
Yeah. Yeah, you're probably right about that. And I think, I thought helping or like making Kamala Harris be the candidate without like a giant, like I wanted obviously like some kind of mini primary after Biden stepped down. But, like I thought, well, maybe it's a good thing. Maybe she can get a lot of disaffected Republicans that know Trump's wrong for the country. But, we were wrong. And so Kamala Harris didn't win. And obviously there's, a certain amount of like racists and sexists that would never vote for her anyway. But, it's like, how many times do Democrats have to pick the centrist and then lose and then say, oh, the progressive would have been worse? But like, like you said, maybe you get actually way more enthusiasm and participation if you actually have a strong platform that means something to people. And it's not just slightly, it's like mostly the same, but like just some edge cases will be a little more liberal. But other than that, we'll do things as they always have been. And we'll be, we'll like protect the kind of establishment money in the same way that Republicans do. Like there's a strong, credible, like reason that people think like the third way kind of democratic strategy of just being slightly to the left of republic of like the center, that it's kind of more of the same, and you get the idea of like the uniparty where it's just the rich interests are basically pulling the strings and flipping back and forth. But I'm more liberal maybe than the average American voter, but I don't know, it's definitely a push and pull. um, let's
Yeah.
see.
And
In terms of, yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think something that you mentioned really hits the nail on the head here is that protecting that establishment money. I think that when the National Party picks their candidates, they pick somebody who will be loyal to them. They pick
Right.
somebody who they can control with the money that they give them. They pick somebody who will be useful for their own interests. But it's not about what the people want. And that's the problem right then and there. It's
Right.
not somebody who is going to be there for the people. It's somebody who's going to give these talking points, these manicured, manufactured talking points that are somewhat close to what the people want, but that's it. There's no more substance to that. And
Hmm.
unless we get out of that, I'm going to control you with the money that I give you mentality, then there won't be a real change.
Right. What do you think about that? Because like I'm always struck by like I listen to a lot of podcasts, and like almost any time there's a senator or a congressperson on the podcast, I skip it because I'm just not interested in anything they say, because everything is like such poll tested language that I feel like I'm not even getting like an opinion. So I personally do. It's just they're almost, and I guess it's obvious, inevitable. Like you get elected, you speak for all Virginians in your case, or all Americans if you're the president or whatever. So part of it is maybe inevitable, but like I don't know, it's just I feel like you need some opinion, and then you get all these politicians that just try to be everything for everybody, and then the longer you're doing that, you just come across as super super fake, until the point like someone like Hillary Clinton that runs she's had this long storied career, a lot of good things she did, but she just is like completely just wooden. Like Kamala Harris, like everything, like she was afraid to go on podcasts because she might say something that would just make a giant scandal or crisis, or peel off like a big, one of the groups, so to speak, of the Democratic Party. And you get to the point like, people say that about like the Democratic Party when it's like, they do their campaigns in the DNC convention, and it's like this long list where they have to include everybody, and it takes 45 seconds of like land acknowledgments and all of that. And that, like it kind of gets to the point where you're like not really saying anything, and people get like pissed off about that, like especially on the right or the moderates that look at that and get annoyed by it. But like how do you think you would balance that? Like if you get elected, between keeping like what keeps you a real normal human being versus kind of getting into the blob, so to speak, of like the DC establishment or whatever.
Yeah. So a lot of that comes from keeping grounded and keeping in touch with the real life that I have
Hmm.
here in Central Virginia. So like going to the grocery store for myself. It sounds so dumb, but it is so important to know
Right.
how people are feeling about the prices that they're seeing on eggs and
Yeah,
milk
right.
and bread. Like, you and I both know that Donald Trump is not going to the grocery store and looking what a dozen eggs costs. So
Yeah.
it's
I don't
like
think he's been in a grocery store for like 50 years, probably.
probably, which again is probably why he thinks that the word affordability was made up. Like,
Yeah.
we have to we
He's
have
so
to
dumb.
stay it is, it truly is, but we have to stay connected to what it is that matters, which is the people that live in this district, and we are very blessed in terms of how many people live here. We have
Hmm.
over 823,000 people in Virginia's first district, and it is very large, and it's going to require a lot of listening in different parts of the district. Holding town halls is such an important piece of it, where anyone and everyone who is in the district can come and tell you what their concerns are, because without them, reaching out via email, there's no way to know. And so I think not only, like, being in the community that you represent, but also just listening to the people that live there about what their
Yeah, right.
experiences are is so, so important. And it won't be the manufactured talking points that the party gives you and says, "Here, stick to these 3," but it's
Hmm.
it's going to be a more comprehensive, more complete picture of what's happening throughout the district when it's coming from the people that live there.
Right. I think the extreme opposite of that would be someone like Mitch McConnell, who I'm sure like doesn't give a fuck about talking to like random Kentuckians. And if you look at the like ratings, like Kentucky's been pretty low on like most standard of living statistics, and he's been the
Yeah,
senator for over like 45 years or whatever. And
yeah.
I don't think he's necessarily improved anything. And now he's probably brain dead or physically dead, and he's fucking over his voters right before I guess he really dies because they have taxation without representation. They have like half the
Exactly.
Senate representation that they deserve.
Exactly.
Um, and then and then I'll let you go because you're probably really busy. But you brought up Israel and Gaza, and like, what would you like, or how would you advise Democrats to deal with that issue? Because it seems like APAC, right off the bat, like we are really sick of like APAC having any involvement in democratic politics. If you're a politician that has collected millions of dollars over the decades that you've been in office from APAC, like I think that's going to be like an albatross politically around your neck. And then
Mhm.
obviously, like Israel has basically told Democrats, fuck off. Like they screwed over Obama. They've been doing all of this political meddling for Trump. They literally went to Congress and tried to kill Obama's Iran deal, right? So like they've really completely thrown off their kind of bipartisan effort to keep all Americans happy with Israel, and they've just kind of doubled down on the most cynical Republican politicians, I feel like. And then obviously with Gaza, like, I think it's going to be a big thing. It's going to be like, everyone asking Republicans who won the 2020 election and they can't say Biden won. It'll be like that for Democrats of like, is it like genocide going on? And I don't know how you can look at pictures of all those cities that are just literally every building is knocked out. And it's like, that was a normal, just war, right? That wasn't an overreaction to what Hamas is doing. And then, obviously you get into it. And I think Netanyahu loves Hamas and loves, using them to do whatever he wants and always have this villain and enemy. So, like, I just think politically it makes no sense for Democrats to be interested in anything Israel's doing. I think it makes sense for us to tell Israel, like, you're not getting like the $12 billion or whatever it is a year in military assistance anymore. So, like, it seems to me there's no political benefit for like some Democrats to be like ride and dying with Netanyahu, right? Like,
Yeah.
how would you recommend Democrats vote about that? Because I think a lot of Democrats are going to lose their primaries based off of that one issue.
And you know what? Some Democrats deserve to lose their primaries over this
Yeah,
issue. Like,
totally.
and I completely agree with you that there are Democrats who refuse to acknowledge facts. They refuse
Yeah.
to acknowledge what the United Nations has said over the course of not just 2025, but 2024 and
Right.
2026, that Israel is committing genocide in Gaza. The fact that they can't say that, and then they argue with the person and try to undermine the credibility of the person trying to get their opinion on it. It's just
Hmm.
it's blue MAGA behavior, frankly, and
Kind of, yeah, yeah.
it's disgusting. And, like, I saw a video recently, that was sent to me by the person that was asking the question of a certain Senate candidate running in Florida, and they they could not answer the question. They did not answer the question, and it's just to me, it's disgusting. AIPAC needs to be gone out of our whole campaign finance system. If we get nothing else done in campaign finance, that lobby, that PAC needs to go. And I think it's problematic for Democrats in like at the very minimum, it is problematic for them to accept funds from AIPAC. It is a decimation of their campaign at worst
Hmm.
because we are learning so much more about what AIPAC is doing to embed itself into our government. And it's it's being allowed by these Democrats that are taking so much money from AIPAC. They gotta go. And
Yeah,
I think we tell candidates who are running for either a first time or for reelection, like, all right, APAC money's got to go. Any money that is associated with Israel lobbies, it's got to go.
right.
And by the way, here are the findings of the United Nations Human Rights Commission that says that Israel is committing genocide in Gaza. Here
Yeah, right,
are the reports that show that they have killed more than 20,000 children in Palestine. Here are the reports that say they have injured more than 44,000 children in Palestine. And
right.
you can look at the pictures of, as you mentioned, the buildings just absolutely leveled as far as the eye can see.
Yeah,
This is what genocide looks like. This is what you need to call out. And if you don't, like, the people aren't going to choose you to represent
yeah.
them because you won't admit facts.
Yeah, I don't understand that issue because it's not even going good for Republicans. Because like Trump got elected saying no foreign wars. I'm the only one who won't do a
Whoops.
war in the Middle East, and it's like here we go. So like Trump's obviously an idiot and got like tricked into it basically because he's a moron that doesn't read anything and doesn't know anything about any history or whatever. So Netanyahu just told him it'd be fast and easy. He's like you'll look like Eisenhower and Roosevelt and Lincoln combined because you just won the war in Iran so fast and easy. It'll be so quick. So like it screwed over Republicans completely. Like we've just like Republicans keep saying China's the bigger threat, and we just wasted like I don't know like half of our missile supplies like in Iran, and it's not going to end. Right? There's like now the goal is just to go back to the way it was before and open up the strait after we've spent all this money. We've killed all these civilians in Iran, and so like just off of that, I don't even understand why Republicans aren't even more mad about, especially because they're like the more isolationist wing. And then you look at, I don't know how much of it is trolling, but that map of like Greater Israel that Israeli officials put out that they show like Israel goes all the way up to Turkey and steals land from Turkey, all of Jordan. It goes to like I think the Euphrates River in Iraq. It's like a third of Saudi Arabia is within this Greater Israel, and then all the way to the Nile. And again, I don't know how much of it is like like from the actual people that like pull strings there. That how much of it is trolling or real. But obviously, like the hardliners that Netanyahu is increasingly dependent on for his electoral success, they are all like full steam ahead about that. But I guess I think Israel's election is in October, and I think Netanyahu is like a 82 or 84% unfavorable approval ratings right now. So
Mm.
we'll see what happens from that. But man, just what a mess! And I just think I guess Republicans pay no consequences whatsoever for it. And if Trump just tells them this is good, there's like 30% of Republicans that are just as ride and dies and will believe whatever he shovels into their mouths, right? But
Yeah.
I don't know. It's wild to me that Democrat, and then you get like John Fetterman that is gonna, I guess, he's gonna flip parties and turn Republican if we don't just,
Bye.
yeah, right. Hopefully the Senate map goes well enough in November that it's okay, and we still have the majority when he perhaps inevitably betrays his own voters and gives up all of the things he ran and won and campaigned on. So I don't know.
That's crazy. But I think to
Yeah.
your point too, like, we need to tell Democrats about not giving funds or military aid to Israel.
Hmm.
because we're only going to see them continue to use it in this offensive manner. This is not
Yeah.
defensive. I hadn't seen the map, but if it is, out there that people can
Yeah. Look
see
it
that
up.
they're
Greater
trying.
Israel.
You got it. I will.
Wow.
Um, like this is something that Russia does. Like this is a very much we're going to take over, a portion of the Middle East and Europe. Like we're not
Yeah.
this is not defensive by any means. This is
Right.
controlling territory. This is like Hitler in the
Yeah. Literally.
1930s. Like
Uh,
it's just
yeah.
terrifying.
And they're doing the same thing in Lebanon right now. They just took
Mhm.
20% of southern Lebanon. They're taking everybody out of their homes, pushing them up north, and saying, like, this is the new, like, demilitarized zone. You can't come back. It's just literally insane. But
Yeah. Hi,
on that
Ben.
happy note, oh, yeah. Hi, Ben. Uh, on that note, do you want to plug anything for yourself? Do you want to tell people where they can help you out, donate money, visit websites, read about you?
Absolutely. Would be so, so grateful if you would consider contributing to the campaign of the most progressive candidate in the field of 7 candidates in my race here in Virginia. My website is erickakopp.com and it is spelled like this. Ericka Kopp.
Nice.
There you go. .com.
Yeah. How
So
much merch do you have of your name now from your campaign?
not a whole lot. Not a
Not a
whole
whole lot.
lot. We thought about, setting up a merch store through our website, but there was just too much to do to make it happen,
Yeah.
and it would take away time from everything else because our kitchen table of folks on this campaign is pretty small, and, we're working our asses off to get everything done around working full time. So we're doing the best that we can with what we've got, but we're doing the work of probably 50 to 100 volunteers. So
Nice.
yeah, it's exhausting, but it is so worth it
Yeah.
because the people here matter to me so much, and I want to provide them with the responsive government that our representative can't and won't do. So that's really truly why I'm running. And you can find me on my social media channels. I am everywhere except X because fuck Elon. And you can find me at EK, the number 4VA, with the exception of Blue Sky, which is at erickakopp.com.
Cool. Well, it was lovely talking to you. I
Thank
always
you.
enjoy a nice discussion with somebody that knows what they're talking about. And I really thank you for getting involved and putting your time, money, effort, sanity, and attention to our democracy.
The sanity part. Yes, yes.
You're
That
running a little low on the sanity.
I could use a little
Yeah.
bit.
Yeah.
I could use a little bit
Well,
more, I guess.
yeah. Well, good luck to you, and
Thank
I'll
you.
keep pushing you to all my fans and everything. And send me those links, and I'll put that in the show notes of this and
You got
anywhere I
it.
post this conversation. So great to talk to you. Thanks everybody for listening, and good luck on your race.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Yeah. See you, everybody. See you next time.